Welcome everyone to Coachology in 20, where we learn coaching concepts in 20 minutes. Now, if you're tuned in, please let me know you're here. Say hi. If you're a new coach, grab your pen, your pad, your tablet, whatever you use to take notes, and sit back and get ready to learn something new about coaching. If you're an experienced coach or a seasoned coach, for want of a better word, I don't like to use that word seasoned. I think that needs to stick to cooking. Then if you are an experienced or seasoned coach, then please do. I invite your wisdom and experience into these topics each week. Just drop your thoughts and your comments in the comments box and I will bring them up on the screen. I think it's really beautiful to create a space of shared learning where we're using the wisdom in the room. I can bring you up as part of these sessions so we can share and spread the love and the education of coaching through these live sessions. I can see we've got Adele tuned in. Adele, thank you so much for being here. Really wonderful to see you. Amy, thank you so much for being here. It's really great to see you as well. So thank you. So I'm looking forward to both of you sitting back or bringing in your observations and thoughts. And today what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be talking about the difference between coaching and therapy. Now, I've highlighted it and titled this as coaching versus therapy, but we're going to be looking at how we distinguish coaching from all different other types of support and methods, including, which is pulling off our session last week, the AI personal support that we finished with when we were looking at the future of coaching and where our profession might be heading. So we're going to be looking at not just coaching and therapy, we're going to be looking at coaching and teaching, we're going to be looking at coaching against consultancy, we're going to be looking at coaching against AI personal support, and a few other things in this short presentation. And why are we looking at this? Why is it important for us to distinguish coaching from other support methods? One of the reasons why we are doing this presentation and we're actually educating a lot of the general public on this is because throughout the past 5 years since we've been around, since Coaching Minds, we have done a number of online events. You've seen our online retreats. We've done offline events in the UK. We've been to a few career fairs and networking events. I've been to a lot of networking events in London and around the country as well. And one thing I find is that there's a lot of misconceptions around what coaching is all about. So I just want to ask anybody who's tuned in right now, what misconceptions have you heard personally about our profession? I'm going to share a few that we generally tend to get when we're hosting events in person and online around the questions of what coaching actually is. But I'd love to know from your experience, what have you heard people assume coaching is about that is not true? And I think the biggest one, which you might be able to relate with and connect with, and the reason and the purpose of today's title is therapy. A lot of people confuse and believe coaching is like therapy. And actually, it is a completely different way of supporting individuals. And if we're mixing therapy and coaching, unless we're a licensed therapist, unless we are an actual therapist that has gone through the relevant qualifications, we should not be stepping into that area of therapy as a coach. Donna says giving advice. That's a big one. Donna, it's great to see you tuned in. Thank you for this. So giving advice is another huge misconception. I think that's one of the biggest eye-openers for new coaches that are coming into our profession. It's one of the biggest shifts in kind of deeper awareness and understandings. We see a lot of our coaches who jump on our coaching programs. We feel that because we are the person that people come to for advice in our family, our friends, we always hold that space. We're good at giving people advice. We think we'd be perfect as a coach. I think one of the biggest eye-openers that we see when we start to train to become a coach is that we don't give advice. And the question that I generally get back is when I share this, and I've shared this at events, is, well, if you don't give advice, what do you actually do as a coach? And we do everything that I shared in our previous sessions up to date. I'm not going to recap on all of that. I will recap on bits as we go through today's sessions. Donna's saying leading the sessions. That's another misconception that we get. For some reason, it's not showing a comment. It's not pulling that up on the screen. Okay, there's a little bit of a freeze, just a little bit slow. Sorry, my internet. Rosanna's also saying that we solve problems. And Adele's also said that we will fix your problems. So a lot of people think that they're coming to us to be fixed, to have their problems solved. And trying to pass, I don't know if any of the coaches that are tuned in right now kind of pass the work on to us ourselves. I said, we're going to be the ones that are going to be work with the coaches, but we don't. Now I'm going to go into each of these and how coaching is very different. The other thing we get a lot don't know if anybody can resonate and relate with this as well, is a lot of people associate coaching with sports. So a lot of people will come to me, so what is it, like a sports coach, something to do with sports? So there's another misconception there around what we actually do as a coach. But it's really important. And why are we talking about this? Because as a coach, it's in no matter what level we are, if we're new, if we're experienced, it's very important for us to be able to explain to potential clients and to individuals what it is we actually do. We actually have a duty to explain what we do and to kind of remove these misconceptions for the benefit of our overall profession. So it's important that people understand what we actually do. And like I always talk about, there's a light side of the coaching profession and the dark side of the coaching profession. And unfortunately, the dark side is quite loud at times. What I mean by dark side is those that are calling themselves coaches, which aren't actually coaching, which are doing a lot of this. They're giving people advice on social media. They're giving people advice in that space. They're trying to fix people's problems or telling individuals that they have problems that need to be fixed. And this is why these misconceptions are arising, because unfortunately, a lot of these dark side coaches have large audiences and they have a large reputation, which can have a bit of a negative impact on our profession. And those coaches that are doing things the right way, aligned with our ethical codes and our standards of professionalism. So the purpose of today is to start to talk about those misconceptions and start to understand how coaching distinguishes from therapy, teaching, consultancy, AI personal support as well, but also how it can amplify these areas. Now, I think it's also important to understand that. And I think the key point from today, if you were to take one thing away, is it's not that coaching sits on its own. It's that we can't bring therapy or teaching or consultancy into a coaching space, but we can actually bring coaching into therapy, into teaching, into consultancy. Consultancy is a little bit of a gray area to help amplify that method of support. So, for example, you'll see a lot of coaching starting to appear in psychology now. They're seeing the benefits of bringing coaching as a therapist into their practice. Equally, coaching can be really beneficial sitting alongside teaching. But the important thing to note is if we are marking ourselves as a coach and we're looking at the pure essence of coaching, coaching we need to understand that it is a standalone support service, and we can't bring in, if we are not a therapist, we need to stay within our competencies. If we're not a teacher, we need to stay within our competencies. And I'm going to talk about each of these as we go through to highlight it. Adela is getting ahead of the game here, which is fantastic. She's saying we as coaches are not there to diagnose a person. We're not. And we're going to get onto that when I start to look at therapy. But really, really great point, Del. Thank you for sharing that. So first of all, let's take a look at teaching versus coaching. So for everybody who's tuned in, what do we think is the difference between teaching and the difference between coaching? Let me know. I'm sorry if I'm losing my voice a bit. How does teaching differ from coaching? There's a little bit of a lag on the comments. I'm loving the engagement. Thank you everybody who's tuned in and commenting. It's wonderful. A lot of misconceptions were shared there. So teachers are subject matter experts. They're there to provide information, to transfer knowledge to us, to test our competencies, to see and look at how we're growing and understanding a specific subject, to become an expert in that area ourselves, if that's where we want to take it. That is teaching. Coaching, on the other hand, we do not teach as coaches. We don't sit there in front of individuals with a presentation and tell them everything that they should be doing in their lives, what they need to do with regards to this, and how they should support. We are not there to teach as coaches. Now, where coaching can amplify teaching and where the two can come together is through, maybe you want to develop a mindset course or a habits course or some form of soft skills course. That is a great way to bring potential clients to you. It's a good part of your marketing funnel. So deciding to set up a course in a soft skill such as mindset or leadership. My internet is terrible today. I have to apologize for that. Or any other area of soft skill in terms of teaching, you can have that course, but it stays separate. That is your course. You don't bring that into your one-to-ones, coaching sessions, because we're about questions, we're about guiding the clients to their own answers, we're about asking those coming with a place of curiosity to understand what's really going on for our clients, to then help them reach where they want to be. We're not there to tell them what kind of mindset they should have, where they should be at in their life right now, and where they need to be, and all these tips and tricks that they should be using and implementing to get there. We can do that outside on a course. They can purchase the course, they can work through there. But in that one-to-one coaching session, it's pure coaching. So this is how coaching can be amplified alongside teaching. And I also think in the future, we're going to see coaching within the educational sector start to really pick up, where teachers become coaches. Because it's not just about relaying information, it's about how do we actually ask students the questions to come up with their own answers based on the content and the topic that we're teaching. We're going to see a lot more team coaching, I think, in universities and in the future, because coaching is starting to be realized as a really important skill across the world right now. So I'm going to bring in some comments. Donna saying, coaches help you to explore and find opportunities and resources to find the answers for your own particular needs and situations. Excellent. Thank you for summing that up, Donna. That's really great. Amy saying, teaching is sharing information. Coaching is client-led. Beautifully put in a sentence. Thank you so much, Amy. And Rizan saying, teaching is a person with knowledge. Yep, subject matter expert. Coaching is about the coachee has the answers and the knowledge themselves. Yep. So it's going back to what we talked about I think it was a couple of sessions ago when I first opened up an introduction to Coachology in 20. We're there to ask questions. We're not there to give answers. We're there to help the clients find their own answers. We're there to provide a fishing rod to help the client learn how to fish. We're not there to make them dependent and to provide the fish. Okay, consultancy. Another misconception that people get is they mix consultancy with coaching. And the reason why I said this was a little bit of a grey area, I'm going to open it up to everybody here. What is the key difference between consultancy and coaching? And why this is a bit of a grey area is because there's a lot of consultants calling themselves coaches. And whilst I'm talking about how coaching can amplify alternative methods of support, I think it's very risky and we need to be very careful when it comes to consultancy. And the reason being is because those roles can become easily blurred. So for example, if we're an organizational coach and a consultant that is working within an organization, within systems, with a lot of individuals, we've got a coaching project, maybe we're doing a little bit of work as part of that project as well, it's going to confuse all the stakeholders within that organization, what our actual role is. It's going to be hard for us to put our coaching hat on and our consultancy hat on at certain times and the right times within that engagement. So when it comes to consultancy and coaching, it's very important to keep them separate. And if you're going into an organization as a consultant, stick with consultancy, bring a little bit of coaching in if you need to. If you're going into an organization as an organizational coach to help the corporate culture, it's staying within your expertise, staying within your lane as a coach. Because it's then what happens is what becomes grey is what is your role? What is the work you're actually doing? When can you, so the difference, we'll go through the difference between consultancy and coaching before I get into why it's a great area. That would help. So consultancy is where we actually do work on behalf of the organization or the individual. So they're hiring us to do a certain thing based on our skill set, the knowledge that we have, and we actually do the work for them. And we work with them to achieve the goal that they're setting out to achieve. Remember, as a coach, we don't do the work. We might provide tools, we might provide frameworks, we might guide them to certain methods and support, but everything comes from the coach, and the work they take away is delivered by the coach. So that's the key difference. So when we're going in and we're confusing and mixing consultancy and coaching within organizations, certain individuals might be unspoken expectations that you were supposed to do this and deliver this as part of that project, and maybe it was you delivering it as a coach. So it can be very confusing to put on the two hats. So it's generally advised in our profession, and for those of you on a level 7 program, you'll learn a lot more about this, to separate the two and to not actually enter that space as a consultant if you're going in as an organizational coach. So Adele is saying here, consultant is an expert in their field, but not necessarily in other fields. Yep, so they're generally an expert in their field and they do work on behalf of that individual. So for example, you might, as a coach, you might hire a consultant to help you with your marketing or with an area of your business. You might hire a consultant to build your website. These are all things where they're an expert in their area, their field, and they're actually doing something for you. That's not to say coaches aren't experts in their field in terms of coaching, the skills we possess, the models, the frameworks, the way we can guide and help and support people. It's just to say we don't work in a specific level of experience and expertise, and we don't do work on behalf of individuals. All the work is done by the client. Next, mentoring, probably the most closest and similar alternative method of support to coaching. Now, I'm just conscious of time. I know this is Coachology in 20, so please do put your comments and your thoughts. I will bring them up on the screen, but I'm going to go a little bit quicker through these last few slides of the presentation. Now, the key difference between mentoring and coaching is a coach doesn't necessarily have to walk the similar path that you want to achieve, where mentor has. So mentor is somebody that's achieved something that you're setting out to achieve, or to hit a goal that you're setting out to hit, or something similar. So generally mentors will be within the same profession, within the same role, maybe a little bit further in terms of leadership or management within that area. But a mentor is somebody that has walked something that you want to follow. This could be within a hobby. If you're learning Kung Fu, if you're learning, I don't know, Qigong, if you learn something outside of that, mentors can help you in that area. So a mentor is somebody that has walked that path that you want to walk, or a similar path to them. And at times they can bring in, they will generally take the role as a coach, asking questions, guiding you to your own answers, but at times they will invite their own experience and give you guidance to get you to where you want to go and on that similar path. Maya, it's wonderful to see you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we're just talking about the differences between coaching and alternative methods of support. So as a coach, we don't necessarily have to have walked that similar path. We are there to provide that objective perspective, that neutral perspective, to look at where our blocks, our obstacles, giving a little bit of a helicopter view, helping our clients see things from a different perspective. We don't have to walk that similar path that they've walked. So that is the key difference between mentoring and coaching. And second to last, we are going to therapy. Now, what is the difference? Again, put your comments in the comments box. I'd love to share your thoughts and your wisdom. What do we think the key difference between therapy and coaching is? And Adele already mentioned this earlier on when we're looking at the differences between coaching and alternative methods of support. I think Donna touched upon a few things as well. But the important reason why we need to understand the difference between coaching and therapy, and this is why we talk a lot about mental health first aid as a coach at Coaching Minds, why we look at things like trauma-informed, becoming trauma-informed and aware of where triggers, mental health diagnoses might come into play within our coaching space, because we need to stay and remain within our competencies. As a coach, we must never enter the space of a therapist. However, like I said, coaching can amplify, and we're starting to see psychologists and therapists start to take coaching concepts, models and theories and apply it to their practice, which is fantastic, but it doesn't work the other way. As a coach, we need to stay within our lane. We have an ethical duty to be able to spot when conversations around diagnoses such as stress, depression, anxiety, abuse, anything that falls outside of our competencies, we need to be able to spot those, the signs of those in our coaching space, reset those boundaries, be able to remind those clients and those individuals what we can and can't do as a coach, and then help signpost them to alternative support that is the best method for them. Because therapists work with diagnoses. They explore and go deep into the past. As coaches, we don't diagnose individuals. We don't work with diagnoses. We are focused on the present, and we're focused on the future. We're focused on goals and what individuals want to achieve. We're focused on present day challenges that they want to overcome with an eye to the future. That's the key difference, and why it's very important for us as coaches to stay within our lane. And if we feel like our sessions are becoming a little bit therapeutic, if we're getting feelings of heaviness, if we're starting to being a bit worried and feeling like it doesn't quite feel right, the energy with our client isn't quite aligned, then we need to have that curious exploration to hold that space with the individuals and to see if our coaching is the right support or an alternative method is available, and how we signpost them to that. So Rosanna is saying therapy focuses on the story and the history. Coaching is about moving forward. Exactly. Beautifully summed up, Rosanna. Thank you so much for that. And Donna is saying teachers pass on the knowledge. So that's a very, very delayed comment that's come through there, and we're going back to teachers, but very true, Donna. Thank you for that. So it's important for us as coaches to know these differences and stay within our lanes. Now, there's one last thing which is open for debate, but I'm not going to discuss it with you today. You can go and comment on my article. You can leave me a comment on the replay. But I also am a strong believer that we need to now start distinguishing between coaching and AI personal support. I don't like the terminology AI coach. I'm going to be very vocal about it. You're going to be hearing me say this a lot. I don't believe that AI can effectively coach. I've heard that there's lots of technology. A lot of people come back off the back of my article. There's technology that believes that AI will have some form of emotional intelligence in the future. But I think as a coaching profession, we need to double down on that human focus, that human-centered approach, and just use AI to assist, to amplify our coaching practice, to do the admin tasks outside, to help us build our courses, to help us with our content. Maybe to the extent where we have an AI bot to help us with discovery sessions. I think there's really the key to AI in the future of coaching is something to help us fish out the discovery sessions to whether a client is right for us or not, to save those times that we keep putting in our calendar where clients aren't showing up. But I don't believe that. I think there's a big difference. We need to distinguish this difference between coaching and AI personal support. So AI personal support is a chatbot that's similar to ChatGPT. You type in your problems. You have maybe you can do a bit of voice message or voice notes as well. You're talking with a system and you're asking it to coach you, asking it to ask you questions. And individuals, organizations are training that bot to respond like a coach, but it misses intuition. It misses the ability to read language, body language. It doesn't have emotional intelligence. It takes things literal. It is dependent on the information that the client's putting in. It can't read cues around what's not being said or unspoken expectations. So there's about 90% of our skills that we possess as a coach that an AI bot, chatbot can't do. So for me, AI personal support is something that sits as a separate method, like therapy, like teaching, like counseling, like mentoring, like consultancy, AI support, and then you have coaching over here. And it's not to say we don't use AI. I mentioned a lot of good ways we can use AI to enhance our coaching practice. But I think it's very important to distinguish between the two because there has been cases that have been raised around chatbots, not assisting, but not being able to spot or support or help that have led to a client or a user using it, then committing suicide down the line. And using that word is going to get me blocked on YouTube. I need to be careful of that. But there's cases out there. Give it a Google. It's very dangerous to bring that in. I think if we move forward as a profession, we'll learn the standards if we're expecting everybody to get coached by AI chatbots. We really need to have that human focus as a profession. We need to be one of the remaining, the next 10 to 15 years, we need to be one of the remaining professions that really offer that human support. So I can see lots of things being brought in. That's great. So Donna's saying humans need humans. The medical field highlights how human connection is imperative. Thank you for sharing that. Lara's saying really important to know these differences. Thank you for being here, Lara. Great to see you. Amy's saying thank you, Paul. Excellent presentation. Thank you for being here, Amy. I think it's really important that we distinguish these different methods of support. And as Anne's saying, AI can never deep dive, stays on the surface. It does indeed. Thank you so much. And that is it for today. If you do want to learn a little bit more, I do have a book. I have 5 books out on Amazon, but there's more information on this in my Coaching Essentials book. You can screenshot, you can scan the QR code. It's £12.97 on Amazon, so it's not expensive. I'm not trying to rob or take any money from you. It's just if you want to learn more, if you're new to coaching, it's a great book. So check that out. It has a lot more information on the differences between everything that I've covered before and a lot of the basics of learning to become a coach. So please do scan that, check it out. I just want to thank you all for your time today. It's been a wonderful session, lots of wisdom from the room, lots of comments coming through, which is absolutely fantastic. This is Coachology in 20, where we learn coaching concepts in 20 minutes every Monday at 5 p.m. I look forward to seeing you next week when we're going to look at the 8 key skills of a coach. So if you're new to coaching, it's going to be a great session next Monday. I'll see you there. Thank you.